Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
It's Britney, bitch, and I'm back. A few months ago, I released the initial version of SourceDive, and 500 of you downloaded it, which is, without being sarcastic, a lot for a small channel like this. I got 2 reviews, quite some emails, and a bunch of comments under the video. In case you missed it, SourceDive is a little hobby project of mine, a VS Code extension, and since this update, also a VS Codium extension, which allows you to visualize projects and navigate through them. So you can open a project, open SourceDive, and then index the code base. You'll get all these categories that you can click on and walk through. You can, for example, open a file and see which other files include it or which files are included by it. You can expand the node to see what's defined in the file. Then you can turn track mode on, and when you hover over the contents, it will highlight them in the editor. There are also a bunch of other things like whiteboard mode, where you can start scribbling on the graph in case you want to explain something to your friends, in case you have friends, of course, which makes this feature useless in my case, but it gives me some sort of hope. Now, I took your feedback very seriously and decided to start working on the new version, which is not the main reason why I haven't uploaded in a while, but you know, life happens. So in this video, I want to show you firsthand what has changed since the last version. The first change, and one that many of you asked for, is VS Codium support. So if you're a VS Codium enjoyer, go and download it. And for some reason, I actually think it looks better in VS Codium than it does in VS Code. The second big change is expanded language support. The initial version only supported the important languages that keep government MK Ultra operations running, like C and C++. The new version of SourceDive now supports Python. For all my homies who don't understand what a pointer is, yes brother, she was flirting with you 4 years ago, but you didn't get the pointer, which is why you don't have her address now. And at this point, there is no value in getting this reference. Bars. Okay, then we have JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, and Java. Fuck Java. And now you might be wondering, but Tariq, every language is basically its own little microcosm. They all have different things you can define. So how does SourceDive handle this? Well, instead of looking for the same things in every code base, SourceDive adapts to the language you're using. It detects the language, so to speak, and then it looks for the categories that you defined for that language. So if it detects C++, for example, it knows to look for templates, and then templates is our own category, which also means that every language then has its own set of categories, right? Now, as you know, I'm a C and C++ developer, and I've never used languages like Python or JavaScript professionally. So I had to do some research and figure out what developers who actually use these languages would expect from a tool like this. And then I tried to build a language support around that. But I'm obviously not going to get everything right on the first try, so if something is missing or you have an idea that could make it more useful, just let me know. You can leave a comment, or you can use this issue tracking Git repo, which I created just for this. The source code itself isn't there. The repo is only for reporting and tracking issues or sharing general feedback. I'll put a link in the description. Okay, so we've covered VS Codium and expanded language support. The next big change was performance. Someone pointed out that the previous version had problems when opening extremely large projects. We're talking about code bases with more than, I don't know, let's say 50,000 files. And if you try to open something that big, SourceDive would simply freeze. Now, there is no magic trick for dealing with huge amounts of data. You can't index 10 files by reading one of them and then somehow using, I don't know, secret knowledge to figure out what's inside the other 9. You still have to go through the contents of every file. But that doesn't mean that you have to block the user until the entire project has been indexed. It's similar to culling when rendering. You can start by showing a smaller, relevant data set instead of processing everything before the user gets to see anything. So now, when you open a huge code base, SourceDive will not freeze. It quickly gives you the files category, so you can immediately go inside and explore the connections. And if you want a complete in-depth index, you can click on the index button and let the full indexing process begin. I also cleaned up the indexer itself, so the initial version performed a lot of, let's call them, I don't know, indexing, checks, and sometimes even index the same things multiple times. So by removing that, the indexing became much faster and more accurate. And it also fixed some minor bugs from the previous version. And then I also decided to simplify the indexing UI. Before we had two buttons like scan and force reindex, and now we only have one indexing button. Also, when you hit index, you now get a progress bar, so you can actually see that something is happening. And in case you use the initial version, you can notice the visual changes in the UI. It looks much more polished now. I mean, at least in my opinion. The other buttons work still in the same way like before, but I added a new one based on the feedback under my video. So in the previous version, all diagrams were laid out horizontally. And as many of you pointed out, most software diagrams tend to be aligned vertically from top to bottom, right? I didn't want to remove the horizontal layout completely, so I just added this alignment toggle. Pressing it switches the diagram between horizontal and vertical layouts. Now, I'm sure there are still many things that could be improved, but you have to keep in mind that I have absolutely no UI design experience, like zero. I usually work on embedded low-level software which doesn't have a UI, like engine software. I mean, legit car engine software, the code that controls the engine, okay? It's not like the driver gets some UI pop-up rendering from the engine ECU. Unless you drive a, I don't know, BMW, then you get this pop-up and this pop-up. Jokes aside, even that's not rendered by the actual engine ECU, okay? Before my car software bros start throwing CAN buses at me. Anyways, so there's plenty of room for improvement on the indexing side, and I want to make it even faster at compression and make the indexing process more sophisticated. For example, if indexing gets stuck, interrupted, whatever, the indexer should be able to continue from its last known state instead of starting all over again. And trust me, I have a bunch of other things I want to improve and add, but you can't do everything at once. Their resources are limited, and by resources I mean time. So if you want to try out SourceDive, you'll find the links in the description. It's completely free, and if you like it, you can leave a review on its vscode marketplace page. Now I want to take the moment and say a big thank you to my Patreons and YouTube members. If you want to support the channel, there's a link in the description. Leave me a comment, download SourceDive, it's completely free. I'm currently working on more complex projects and videos, and that takes a lot of time if you want to do it properly. I know that you guys like these very complex videos with a lot of depth, and you don't want me to become just another dude like reading AI articles. I just want to tell you, don't worry, I'm working on some very interesting content, but it just takes time. Okay, that's it for today. If you like the content, hit like and subscribe, and see you in the next one. Tariq 10x.